Kevin Frith, welcome to Profile.
Thank you very much.
All right, so you have quite a story. Let me give the Cliff Notes version before we go into it. So you're an entrepreneur, founder of TCF Holdings and Ideas Execution. And I love the fact that it's called Ideas Execution because you're clearly very much an ideas man, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Developer of Suncoast Beach Club, led branding projects for over 2,000 bars, and advocate for small businesses and youth empowerment, and rose from inner city Kingston to lead multi-million-dollar ventures and build companies in Jamaica as well as the United States. Now, when you listen and hear all of this, resume, and all of what you have done and you've built, how do you feel first of all?
Well, I'd say very grateful and humbled at the same time, because life is a journey, and it has not been easy, but with focus and dedication, it has been possible.
And you've had quite the journey, as a matter of fact. Let's start by talking about the environment in which you grew up. You told me that initially you grew up in Jonestown, Kingston. What kind of environment was it when you were growing up?
Well, Jonestown is a very nice garrison-type community. As much as it's the inner city, but I'd say I've experienced a lot of love there growing up as a youngster. The adults are very protective of the young people growing up. And they try to guide you as best as possible to stay out of crime or don't give any trouble. So, but it was a good experience, actually.
Let's talk a little bit about the people that raised you. In this instance, you're talking about your grandparents. Explain why not your parents and what your grandparents were like.
So my mom, she had me when she was very young. And as a result of that, my dad think that it was best for me to grow up with his mom and his dad as well. So I was basically raised by my grandmother, my grandfather, and my father's side, and as well as about 3 of my aunties.
What were your grandparents sort of teaching you and saying to you as they were raising you?
Well, the everyday argument is to make sure I stay out of trouble, because living in the garrison community, it's possible to get yourself into things that your parents don't want you to be involved in. And it's not just, say, crime type things, but even just some activities with your peers that lead to certain things that's unnecessary, and your parents don't want to have that sort of issues to deal with. So they always try to let me know that I should stay in the yard, play with my cousins, and try to avoid the road as much as possible.
At a point, you ended up moving out of Jonestown. Explain what happened and why that happened.
Yeah, so basically there was some community violence that led to somewhat of a shooting incident close to my house. And it was very terrifying, almost the entire night, gunshots rang out, and I plead to my grandparents that, we need to find a solution and leave. And we left Jonestown while I was 14 years old and went to Waterloo Road, that's close to Devon House. And we stayed there at a relative house for a while.
But in those circumstances would also change for you, because you, as you explained, this was around age 14. You would end up in a scenario in which you had to take care of yourself. How come?
Yeah, so what happened is that, my family was used to being in an environment in the Jonestown where my granddad owned the house, and then my grandmother, her daughter filed for her and she migrated at the same time. And then my relative who owned the property that we moved to came back to reclaim it. So at that point I had to figure out a solution for myself, because I didn't have much of I didn't have my mom or dad to call on to say that, I need somewhere to move to now. So I had to figure it out. So I was talking to one of my aunts, and it was close to summer, and she got me a summer job at Red Stripe at the time. And I was there working and actually staying there at the time because...
But they did not know this?
No, they didn't know. So Red Stripe operates where they don't close. It's like a 24-hour operation. So what I tried to do is to make sure that I work at least 2 shifts daily. And then what they call the graveyard shift, I make sure I find a warehouse that is not active and stay there for the night, and then in the morning I'd go to the changing room and get myself ready for work again.
So you're I mean you're saying this very matter of fact, and I assume part of the reason is that it's so long ago. But you're a 14-year-old. So how are you kind of processing this? What were you thinking about it?
Well, for me, it's like survival. When you need to survive, I think like there's this saying that my grandmother would say sometimes, like when trouble take a baby shot fit or something like that.
Yeah.
So when you have no choice, you have to do what you have to do. And I'm somebody who I've always been thinking about how do I survive and how do I sustain myself. So when I found myself in this position, I had no other choice but to figure out what do I do. And I have to utilize any option that is there for me to utilize. So.
But part of what would end up happening is that you would not be continuing in that job because you also decided to go back to school. You're not having somewhere to live, deciding to go back to school, and then need to figure out all of that. So what did you do next? That's a question that I'm going to ask as when we begin segment 2. We're going to be taking now our first break on Profile. We're talking to Kevin Frith. He's an entrepreneur. He's a developer. He is a branding visionary and an advocate for small businesses in Jamaica and the diaspora. Back with you after these messages.